Hey, money nerds, if you have ever wondered how you can start attracting the right person in your life, but you keep self sabotaging or falling into these traps of not being authentically who you are, this episode is going to be for you. Today, I was joined by Sabrina Bendory, who is a best selling author, writer, and relationship coach who helps women build unshakable confidence, break unhealthy patterns, and attract healthy, fulfilling love. She's also the author of You're Overthinking It, Find Lifelong Love by Being Your True Self, and Detached, How to Let Go, Heal, and Become Irresistible. She also recently wrote a new book called The Feminine Code, The Unspoken Rules of Power, Magnetism, and Self-Respect. Today, we covered a lot of really good things that I think are going to help you if you're on the journey to love, or maybe you're just looking for ways to level up your life. You don't necessarily have to be looking for love at the exact moment. But in this episode, we cover the importance of inner work and how healing childhood wounds can break patterns of overgiving or people pleasing, which I think so many of us are guilty of, the concept of magnetism and what it actually is and how to authentically create that natural attraction, practical tips for developing self-worth and boundary setting in dating and relationships. We talk about how to evaluate potential partners' values through early conversations about money and goals and character traits. We discuss the role of daily self-talk and why this is so important for having mindset shifts and building confidence and resilience. We also talk a lot about your internal state and how that influences your external outcomes, sometimes even more than your external circumstances. I think this is a really important concept. And we wrap up by talking about the significance of patience and intentionality with dating, especially regarding finances and commitment. I am so pumped about this episode. It was really fun to kind of take a different direction and discuss relationships from a different lens than we typically do on the podcast. So let's go ahead and turn the mic over to my friend Sabrina. Sabrina, I'm so excited to have you on the Money Nerds podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about some concepts from one of your latest books, The Feminine Code, and relationships, which is a huge one. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm pumped to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. This is actually my first money podcast. I mean, I've done a million relationships, self-help ones, but I've never done a money one. So
well, I'm excited. Well, okay. So for one thing, money and relationships it is something that I constantly get questions about. And so when I heard about your work and I saw some of the stuff you were talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. So let's just dive in first and foremost. Like, how did you get into relationship coaching and talking about this and helping women with their improvement, like self-respect, magnetism, all that? How did you get into this world?
You know what? It's all I've ever been interested in. I definitely watched Sex and the City when I was way too young. I was like 13 and I was like, I want that job. I want to write about relationships. Then when I went to college, I double majored in English and psychology. And at the time I was living the confusion of early relationships of just, this is nothing like it is in the movies. And this guy got my number. He said he liked me. Why did I never hear from him again? And then after I graduated, I always wanted to write about relationships, but that wasn't really a job, unless, aging myself. But back then there was no social media. It was really, you worked at a women's magazine if you wanted to do that. At the time, blogs started becoming a thing. So I started just writing about my experiences to make sense of them. I wasn't coming from any place of expertise. I was just writing and processing, and I was doing it publicly. And all these women started resonating with what I was talking about. I started a blog with an ex-boyfriend, actually. It was a whole other story. And he would do like this Ask a Guy column explaining male behavior. And it just became so popular so quickly because nobody else was really talking about that. This was before ghosting even had a word. And we were like, why do guys just suddenly disappear without telling me like what I did wrong? And why won't he be official with me? We're spending all this time together. So that's really where it started. And then it evolved. God, I've been at this for like 17 years now. It evolved from me writing as this young 20-something in New York City, dating, trying to figure everything out, to eventually through the course of my career, getting married, having kids, going through all those life phases. And then I started working with people one-on-one, and I just see so many parallels with my struggles and what they're struggling with. And I've devoted my whole life to understanding human behavior, relationships, dynamics, differences between men and women. This is all I do. All I eat, sleep, and breathe, pretty much. And here I am, still doing it.
I love that. 17 years that's respectable. That's a good amount of time, but also a good breadth of seeing everything. Which is why I kind of love this. So I want to talk a little bit about your coaching. So when you're working with people, is this generally single people trying to couple up? Is it people in relationships? Like what's the primary avatar that you work with?
Primarily, it is people who are single who want to find their person, whether it's, well, now I work with men too. For the first time in
Ooh,
my 17-year career, I actually have male clients after Detached came out, which has been very cool and very enlightening. A lot of the times, it could be women in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're getting nervous, the biological clock, and I want to have kids, and I'm having such a hard time. Or women who've been married, were married for 2 decades, had kids. Now they're in the second chapter of their life where they're divorced and getting back out there and finding love again. But I also work with people who are having trouble within their relationships, people in toxic relationships. I think majority of the time people come to me after a relationship that just wrecked them, devastated them, gutted them, and just want to get out of that pain. So that's mostly what I see.
which is such a sad place to be, and we've all been there.
Ugh.
It's not
Yeah.
fun at all. When those people come to you, you said they just like want to get out of the pain. Is it generally like within a few months of the breakup? Is it a year or two later? Like what's the time frame that you often see?
Pretty immediately after. I honestly think that the pain of a breakup is almost the worst emotional pain there is, second to losing a loved one.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of death. It's the death of somebody who's still earthside. And I remember in my life going through a breakup feeling like I don't know how I'm going to survive this. I feel like I can't live through this. I am so crushed and gutted. And it feels like you're living in this black box of pain, and that is going to be your new reality, and there's no way out of it. And you just want to know, like, how do I get through this? So I'd say it can be pretty immediate. Or sometimes people will come to me because they're like, why am I not over this guy I had a situationship with a year ago? Why is he still living in my head? I can't get past this. What's wrong with me? So I definitely see that as well.
Yeah, a little bit of that like dwelling that we
Yeah.
all go through. I mean, I
Hmm.
feel that. I'm thinking back to like my early relationships, and it was, I remember reading a book forever ago, and I can't remember the title of it, but it was saying something like, however long you've been in the relationship, it's going to take you double that amount of time to at least get over them. And I was like, oh, is that true? I'm like, I feel like that's totally not accurate, but it was something where I remember holding on to like some random relationship
Right.
advice
Which
from
is
some
nonsense.
totally,
Honestly.
totally. So I was thinking about that before we hit record, and I was like, okay, what are some of the weird relationship things that you hear that you're like, why do we hold on to this? Like, is there anything that like comes to mind there?
The best way to get over someone is to get under someone
Yeah,
else.
totally, never a good idea, right?
I mean, that might make you feel better for a little bit, but that's not going to solve anything.
No.
Definitely that. That was actually Charlotte said that on Sex and the City as well. It takes you either half the time or double the time. No, you cannot make these generalized, sweeping statements. Everyone's process is different because everyone is bringing so much into the breakup, meaning they're bringing their whole past, their childhood trauma, every relationship that came before. All these relationships, it's like one leads to the next, leads to the next. And unless you really do that deep inner work to heal after the first one, you're going to carry over a lot of that pain and the heartache and everything into the next relationship. And then it builds and it builds. And so if you really go that far down the rabbit hole, it's a much harder climb to fully get out of it. So no, you cannot generalize like that.
Yeah, it's
The
so
only
true.
generalization you can make is that unfortunately, you can't get around the pain. You have to move through it. And like I said, that emotional pain is debilitating. And if you try to avoid it and numb yourself out and distract yourself with overworking, I see a lot of people doing that in this day and age, just hustling, and they think they're being productive, but really they're just hiding from their feelings, or drinking too much, or smoking too much, or doom scrolling too much, whatever it is you're trying to numb. It's just, you can't outrun a rain cloud. It's going to catch up with you eventually. So you gotta face those ugly feelings.
So true. And from a financial side, what I see so often, Sabrina, is people overspending, like just trying
Oh
to
yeah, 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 that's
numb
another
it,
big one.
They're like,
Hmm.
I'll just go shop. And this is me too. Okay. So I was telling my sister that I was going to be chatting with you. And we were talking about like overcompensation in relationships and how women often will do this. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's we take on more of like the caretaking role sometimes. Like
Hmm.
it shows up so many different ways. But we were discussing the overcompensation that women do in general of trying to appear a certain way.
Hmm.
And I had shared with her that when I feel insecure or like not good enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not whatever enough, my natural tendency is like, I got to control what I can control. I'll go get my hair done. I'll go buy
Yeah.
clothes. I'll do a little bit of shopping. And I know that now, so I can control it and not do that. But I think about this a lot too. So why do you think women, generally speaking, do tend to overcompensate with relationships?
Okay, a few things. First is most people have the unworthiness wound, this feeling of
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. And for women in particular, we've just been conditioned from such an early age that being needed is the same as being valued. And so we give and we give. A lot of the time, this comes from our caregivers, our upbringing, especially if you were praised and you were shown love when you were the people pleaser. I see this a lot, like the people pleasing with women. If you were the people pleaser, you were the one who was the good girl, you were well behaved, and then you got the message from your parents, oh, you're so good, we love you. But if you had unpleasant emotions or if you had a need that was counter to what your parents needed, then you were too much. You're being too much. You need to calm down. You're too dramatic. You're too emotional. You're too sensitive, whatever it is. And so as children, we don't have the cognitive ability to see outside of that, of the experience. We can't see the perspective of our parents and say, well, they're just really stressed and they don't know how to handle their nervous system is dysregulated. A child instead sees, no, I'm only lovable as long as I'm serving others. I'm only lovable if I can make the people around me happy. And that doesn't go away just because we turn 18 and we leave the house. It follows us. And then it comes into romantic relationships where I need to do more. I need to give more because that means that I'm lovable and I'm valuable.
Which is so sad. Like
It is so
what a
sad.
terrible thing.
Mhm.
With those types of wounds that you see a lot, like you've talked a little bit about like mother wounds, father
Mhm.
wounds, and attachment styles and stuff like that in your content. What is like what's the pathway out of that? If somebody notices that maybe they are a people pleaser,
Mhm.
how do they start to like evolve out of that? Do you have any like tips?
Yeah. Well, first, I know this has become so mainstream now, whereas nobody used to talk about it. But the solution is you have to reparent yourself. And so let's
Mm-hmm.
look at what that looks like. Because calling up your parents, your mother or father, and saying, I just realized I have the mother wound because you never validated my emotions. That's going to get you nowhere. They are
For
just
sure.
going to defend whatever happened. And you can't go back in time and redo your childhood. And getting an apology from them now isn't going to fix anything. So, in terms of the people pleasing, the first step is we need to identify where this came from. Where did I get the message that I'm only valuable if I'm serving others, if I am doing more for others? Okay, we trace it back to our childhood. And now in adulthood, you have to be there for yourself in the way that you needed them to be there for you. And what that means is when you're having a hard moment, when you have a presentation at work, it doesn't go well, when you take a hit financially, in relationships, in life, rather than berating yourself and saying, oh, you're so stupid, you're too much, whatever it is, you say, you know what, like, you did your best. And okay, it didn't go your way this time, but we learned and we're going to pick ourselves up and you're still valuable and you're still lovable. And this isn't an indictment on you. That's the way that we start to heal from that. In terms of the people pleasing, the antidote is also to build your self worth. The reason we people please is because we're not anchored in our own worthiness. We only feel worthy when we do for others. And the way to build your self worth is first, you have to challenge the faulty narratives that got you here in the first place. All of us come into the world believing we're worthy of love. I have 4 children. I see it. They come in, love me, take care of me. Like there's no part of them that questions whether they're worthy of that. Where it starts to shift, and I see this over and over again with my clients, is around the ages of like 7 to 8, is when they start to develop that higher cognitive ability and they start questioning themselves. Like,
Hmm.
oh, am I not lovable? My mom yelled at me. Does that mean that I'm not lovable? That I'm not good enough? And then they start to turn against themselves. And this is where they start to think that like I'm just a bad kid. I have one child like this, one of my older ones,
Hmm.
who's like, if I'm upset at him, oh, you think that I'm bad. And it's like that's how their brains work. And it really takes a lot of attunement on my end to be like, you are not a bad kid. I just got upset in that moment because that was a frustrating thing. Or however it is, we need to like break it down, but you really do need to break it down for them. And so that's like the root of it. So we need to look back and say, okay, like this voice in my head, these things that I'm telling myself about myself, I didn't decide this. This was told to me at a young age, or actually, this wasn't even directly told to me. This is what my young mind extrapolated from whatever was happening. And then we have to start pushing back against that narrative and reprogramming it with a whole new one, which is that no, I am worthy just because I am, and I am allowed to take up space, and I am allowed to ask for what I need, and that still makes me worthy of love.
Yeah. How long does that take to like get through? I presume this is a lifelong practice, but generally speaking, if you're like becoming very cognizant of it, you're aware of it, you're working through it. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it less?
Oh,
Like
this
what
happens very quickly. My coaching
Nice.
program is 2 months, and I tell them, like if you commit to it, you go all in, and you do what you need to be doing, like you'll dramatically shift within a very short amount of time.
That's
I'll see like
impressive.
expressions on people's faces change. Yeah, it's really incredible. It really is, because here's the thing, most of us don't realize that we're living our lives on automatic pilot. We
Yeah.
think the same things every day. We ascribe the same meanings to the events that happen, and we don't question it. We're just going through the motions. And something very powerful happens when you stop and you really look at what's living in your subconscious. What are all these old operating systems that are still running? And you bring it to the surface and you look at it and you're like, oh no, that's not true at all. That's not true. For example, there's an exercise I do with my clients when I say, okay, tell me a limiting belief that you want to get rid of. And overwhelmingly, the belief is, I'm never going to find anyone. I'm going to end up alone. I'm like, okay, like give me evidence to support that. And then they start naming the evidence, and I can see it in their face as they're naming it. They're like, no, this is ridiculous. They're like, well, I never find good guys on the dating apps, and my father was emotionally unavailable. And then when we start picking, okay, so your dad was emotionally unavailable, does that mean you're not worthy of love? No, it just means that he was ill-equipped. He had his
Yeah.
own stuff that he didn't deal with, that he didn't manage, and that doesn't mean that I'm unworthy of love. So once you start challenging these things, you realize, oh, this belief has absolutely no legs to stand on.
I think that's a really important piece to recognize is sometimes when we just name it, it can be identified as ridiculous. Like when you put it
Yeah.
out there, you're like, okay, this is so dumb. Like, why do I actually believe this? It makes no logical sense. But
Yeah.
when we're in our head all the time, it's so hard to get that info out. So that's why I think like coaches and
Mhm.
communication is so important for us to just articulate it, verbalize it, and understand it's a little bit lame. Like we could do better than that. We deserve better than that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the concepts in your book that I really want to dive into is this whole concept of magnetism,
Mhm.
because I presume this is similar to charisma, but I'm very interested in this because oftentimes, and I have felt this way myself, when we think about becoming like a magnetic person or the person that people, everyone wants to be around, we're like the life of the
Yeah.
party, we often feel like we have to change who we are. I need to
Mm.
either be very quiet and mysterious or I need to be very loud and boisterous and I need to be a totally different person. Is there any truth to that or is that something that we just tell ourselves?
That's something that we just tell ourselves. Magnetism is not a vibe, or no, it is a vibe. I mean, magnetism is a vibe. It's not an aesthetic. It's not like a red lip. It's not about being the black cat. Magnetism is that natural pull that you create when you are no longer tying your worth to how other people see you. It
Mm.
is just that energy when you are just grounded and you are just fully accepting and embracing who you are. There's something so magnetic about it. And just summon in your mind anyone listening, or you, anyone in your life who just is so at ease in their own skin, and how you feel around that person. Like you want to be around them more. You want to absorb that energy. So being magnetic, it's not performative at all. A lot of people think that it is.
Mhm.
It is just being okay with who you are, and not needing the world to validate you in order to feel like you're okay.
Ooh, I like this. Is there ever a time where I'm thinking through like networking events that I've gone to historically,
Mhm.
and some people are truly being authentically who they are. And I'm like, how do I get away as fast as I can? Like, it's like too much. It's like the communication, the cleaning. I'm like, ooh, this is a lot. Is
Uh-huh.
there ever a time where it's like, yes, be authentically you, but also like work on your communication skills? Like, how does that balance in?
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, we should always be striving to be our best selves. And if somebody is just like being a little too much, and it sounds like maybe they're pressing against boundaries, maybe oversharing too much. Those are all wounds. That's not somebody who's coming from an emotionally healthy space. So yeah, we always want to be oriented towards being our best selves. But part of that is also accepting that all of us have our flaws and our things that we need to work on. Most of the time, our best qualities are a hint to our worst qualities. Like the things that make us really successful can also be the things that get in our way sometimes. So yeah, I think it's important to be socially aware, to be emotionally intelligent, all these things. And the being okay with who you are is just accepting who you are, not living in this space of, do they like me? How do they feel about me? How many connections did I make at this networking event? That's not being detached. Sitting behind me, detached. That's not being detached. That is being thirsty. That is, I need this external. I need the applause. I need the connections. I need the validation. Otherwise, I'll feel unworthy, and I can't have that. So, okay, give it to me. So the people you're describing that maybe are coming on a little too strong, I think they're coming from that place and not from a genuinely detached magnetic place.
That's a good point. I appreciate you saying that. When people are starting to work on sharing who they are and being authentically themselves, I would imagine that this is probably very difficult for a lot of people that have been, told to feel small or made to feel small their entire life. Now they're trying to take steps to share who they are, which would be very scary. Rejection, all that kind of stuff probably comes to their minds. What are some things we can do to like start being okay with sharing who we are in an authentic way?
Well, the first thing is, I don't think you need to share who you are. I think you need to be who you are. You don't need to tell people who you are. Like there's like a phrase, a rich man doesn't need to tell you he's rich, right? It's just, you just know, it's just
Sure.
like, it's just a vibe. It's an energy. I think that what you brought up is actually something that's in the book because I give a few codes and these are not rules. It's not like the rules of don't call him, don't this. It's more a new system to live your life by, all areas of your life. And one of them is silence and mystery. You don't need to overshare everything. And that's not, a lot of the time people think, oh, I just need to share about myself and that's me being authentic. No, a lot of the time that's an old wound. That is a wound of, hear me. I feel like I'm going to be misunderstood. The only way to be safe is for you to understand me. Or I'm so desperate to connect, I'm just going to trauma dump on you so you latch on to something. It's recognizing there's a difference between being vulnerable and being porous. Vulnerability is a gift. We shouldn't just be spreading that around freely. That should be handed over to somebody that really shows that they are deserving of something that is so precious. Being porous is, I'm just starved for connection and I'll take it in any form. So, yeah, it's not about sharing who you are. I think that a lot of women make this mistake on dates. They maybe feel like they have to fill in every silence and they have to show him how interesting they are. Because how is he going to know? How is he going to know that I'm successful and I'm smart and I'm well traveled? I got to tell him all these things. No, you don't. You just need to be. I mean, sure, tell him as it naturally comes up, but don't feel like you need to be putting on this grand like show of how amazing and how interesting you are. You have to trust I am anchored in that and that will come across. And if it doesn't come across to this person, then this probably just isn't my person.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned first dates. I have to go there.
Sure.
I'm so curious, like, because I've been in the same relationship for 22 years. So for me, the idea of like going back into the dating world, I'm like, oh man, that'd be rough. Like I would probably be like, what's your credit score? Do you have a net worth? Like I would probably just be putting it all out there and never get a second date and not understand why. So I'm curious for people listening in, what are the maybe healthy questions to ask around first dates when it comes to financial red flags? If we're looking for them, like what can we be picking up on that would maybe be a cue to run or lean in?
Okay, financial red flags. Well, first, I guess maybe we should talk about the obvious one of like who should pay on a date.
For sure.
I think that this is about data. This is not about the money. This is about what it tells you. So if a guy is offering to pay and wanting to pay and planning the date and wanting to make a nice experience, that shows you this guy's serious and he's interested and he's invested. And so I do think that it's important to see that and to allow him the space to do that. At the same time, I do think that it's nice if a woman offers. I don't love it when a guy accepts the offer on the first date. I think once you're on like the third or fourth date, then it's okay. And I also think that it's okay for a woman to pay if it's her idea, if she has like this idea of like something fun. She's like, I want to plan the date. I think that's okay sometimes. But I do think that it is a red flag if a guy is giving you attitude about whether or not you're paying, or if he
Mm.
is a little too much like leaning back and letting you do too much of the planning. It just kind of shows a lack of investment on his part. That's why I think that that's important to pay attention to. I think that like the way to assess the financial red flags is you have to date. Like that's what dating is. Dating is not a verdict on your worth. It is data. We're just gathering data. I just had a client I was talking to right before you where she was so unsure about certain things about this guy, and I'm like, you're not deciding if he's your husband today. Go on more dates and gather the data. And as you go on dates, you'll see somebody's relationship to money and how frugal they are and what is worth spending on and what's not. You can also just through conversation understand like, you know, would you rather spend money on things or experiences? Just think of fun questions like that to ask them. Do you think it's better to save or to spend, and what things like that? And honestly, I really feel like these things just reveal themselves as you're dating somebody.
They really do. And I think that's a good reminder that even though a lot of people, especially I notice a lot of like women that I work with in their 30s too, are getting to this point where it's like, I don't want to waste my time, Sabrina.
Mhm.
Like I need to like know if this is my person from day one. So we kind of come off a little too strong. We ask all those like
Right.
really tough questions. And then it kind of, makes somebody turn around and go away, which respect,
Right.
I get it. So when it comes to the financial questions, like when in the process do you think it's appropriate to like really dive into debt load, income? Is this like before we get engaged? Is it well before we get engaged? Like when's the right time in your eyes?
So I think that everyone needs to have a priority list for them of what matters and what doesn't. I work with some really, really successful women, and they just would never be able to respect a man who makes less money than them.
Yeah.
And if you can't respect him, he's not the person that you can be with. So that is a conversation that probably needs to be had. Also, it's not just about what is his job and what is his income. I think what matters more is what are his goals, what are his dreams, what are his ambitions? Because somebody could be starting off somewhere and that's like, not where they're happy and like they're moving somewhere else. Somebody else could be starting in the same place and be perfectly content there. So I think you can't really look at the amount in the bank. I think that you have to look at what does he want for himself? What are his goals? What are his ambitions? Um, the debt thing, that's a significant concern, and that is something that needs to be addressed. I don't think that's something that needs to be talked about on date one. I think that once you've seen, are we fundamentally compatible? Is this somebody that I can like communicate with openly? And can we problem solve together? Because that's so much of what a relationship is. It's just doing life together, and life gets complicated and life gets messy. So I would say, at least within once you see that, oh, I could have a future with this person, and
Mhm.
that doesn't mean like, oh, we are going to get engaged soon. I think that maybe once you're decide you're not seeing other people, you're official, then it might be time to have those conversations. You'll also want to have conversations around like, do we want to have kids? How many would we want? Where would we want to live? Especially when you're a little bit older and of the phase of life where like you really can't afford to be wasting your time anymore. I think those conversations happen much sooner than if you're in your 20s, where I think that can kind of unfold over time.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If somebody is getting to the point in a relationship where they are talking about those big life things, like do you want
Yeah.
kids or not? And this is so common for a lot of people where they're like, I don't know yet. Like I'm still
Right.
figuring it out. I'm in my career. I really truly don't know. Is that something where if you are like a diehard, these are some core values, I would imagine like politics, religion,
Yeah.
kids,
Mhm.
values overall, those are probably like non-negotiables. But if
Yeah.
there's something that's maybe like kind of a gray area, like
Mhm.
we'll say the debt load, okay? Like
Mhm.
somebody's like, oh yeah, no, I have a lot of debt. I'm working on it. I'm not proud of it. I'm trying to get through it.
Mhm.
So that would be maybe something where it's like, don't run away yet, just pay attention. Is that kind of the next phase of that?
Yeah, pay attention. Also, okay, he says he has a lot of debt, but then he just planned a trip to Cancun with all of his frat brothers from college. Like,
Right. And he's
okay, and
paying.
right, like I've seen that as well, where guys are in debt and the woman's like, he doesn't really seem concerned with getting out of this anytime soon.
Right.
So again, like I was saying, dating is discovery, it's gathering data. And when you spend time with somebody, these things do reveal themselves, like, is he comfortable in this debt? Does he just not care? Or is this something that is a top priority for him to get out of? And also what I was saying before about women who are like, no, I could never respect a man who makes less than me. I've saw other women I've worked with who are like, I don't care. Like, I make an amazing income. I make tons of money. I make more than enough for the both of us. It doesn't bother me, but you have to make sure it doesn't bother him. Because I had one client who had a whole relationship with this guy who was so bothered by it, even though he was trying to not be bothered by it, but he was. And every fight circled back to there. So it's like, okay, he obviously cannot get over this. So you need to make sure that you're on the same page with these things. But again, like, where you start off with somebody is not always going to be where you end up. Like, throughout the course of my relationship with my husband, we've been married for almost 12 years now. We both like kind of work for ourselves, but there were years where I was making more money and he wasn't. There were years where he was making significantly more money. You have to look at the character and what is it they want? Does he value like being the provider, being successful? Is that something that really matters to him? Or does he value like being an artist and putting his art out there, even if that means that he won't be making a significant income, which was the case for one of my clients. So those are the things that like you want to pay attention to, but it's character and values more than whatever the external circumstances are, because those circumstances are so subject to change.
It's so true. I presume if something comes up like that, where there's going to be deep down an incompatibility issue, it's not going to work out long term. Like you can see the writing on the walls. I would imagine that comes down to like the level of self-respect we have, in which how quickly we leave or, detach, as you would say. So
Yes.
Is that kind of the case?
Absolutely. I mean, self-respect is your ability to honor your worth by acting in alignment with your values and your standards and your truth. And doing so, especially when it's uncomfortable to do that. So that's what self-respect comes down to. But I think even deeper than that, the staying in a relationship that's not working, a lot of the time that's fear-based. I'd rather just try to force this to work than get back out there and have to go back on those dating apps. We all dread the dating apps and get back on the dating scene. I'd rather just like stay here. Or you rationalize things away, oh, he doesn't treat me well, but maybe that's my fault. And maybe it's because of what I did or what I said. And we try to make ourselves the problem, because if we're the problem, then we're also the solution. I just need to modify my behavior and then I can get this relationship back on track. When a lot of the time, no, we need to look at the person that we're actually dealing with. So yeah, I think self-respect is honoring what it is that you want and that you need and taking the steps to move in that direction, as opposed to overriding what you know to be true and acting out of fear rather than what you actually know that you want and deserve.
When you come across a client that got out of maybe a toxic relationship, it wasn't serving them, I would imagine for a lot of people, they feel kind of rattled. They feel a little unsure in their identity. They're trying to figure out what went wrong. What was my actions in the situation? What could I control? What couldn't I? And they're getting to the point where they're ready to go back out there. How do they start to like redevelop that self-respect or identity? And maybe that's two separate things, but how do they start to feel better about putting themselves out there again?
Well, first we have to really do an inventory and like an autopsy of what happened in the last relationship, especially if it was something that was very toxic. If he was a narcissist or just somebody with a lot of narcissistic traits, or if it was a trauma bond or if it was an emotionally abusive relationship, we need to look at, okay, what are some of the red flags that I overlooked? Why did I overlook them? Why did I override my instinct? Because you always know the answer. Your body always knows. Your nervous system always knows when somebody isn't healthy for you. That's why I often tell people when they're deciding, do I want to go on another date? Do I not? I say, how did you feel around him? Forget about the awkward dad joke he made. Forget about this one little thing. Because people can be nervous. You're not always being your 100% authentic self on a date. You're dating someone's like representative. They're trying, they're nervous. How do you feel when you're around him? Do you feel anxious, on edge? A lot of the time we confuse that feeling with love, with chemistry, with the butterflies. That's not good though. That's not usually a healthy thing. Or do you just feel at peace? Do you feel like I can just be? That's what we need to be looking at. So you want to look at, okay, where did I override my instincts? And the fact is, a lot of women think, oh, I can't trust myself because I stayed with him. It's like, no, you can trust yourself because you knew the answer all along. You were just actively trying to talk yourself out of what you already knew to be true. So once we really look at, why did I stay? What did I bring to the relationship that was good that I can use in my next relationship? What did I do in this relationship that I won't ever do again in another relationship? Then we create our must-haves and our deal breakers, and we make sure that we're dating intentionally. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. And you have to start reframing. This is the word I use more than any with my clients. Anytime you're telling yourself, "Oh, I'm not going to find anyone," or what if it happens again? What if I end up with like another toxic guy? Reframing to, I trust myself. Because that's what confidence is. Confidence is trusting yourself to be able to navigate whatever comes your way. And it's a muscle, and it develops by putting yourself in situations, trying to choose wisely, and then if it doesn't work out, learning the lesson and then getting back up and trying again.
I love that so much. I
Thanks.
I feel like when people hear this, they're hearing you talk about it and they're like, "Dang, Sabrina's got it. Like she figured this stuff out. She like is a confident person. She knows who she is." Is this something that you have to like work at daily or is it just
Yes.
so natural for you now? Okay, yes.
No, it's
Okay.
not
Tell
natural
us
for
more.
me. It's not natural for me at all. I've learned every lesson the hard way,
Yeah.
the hardest way possible. I've been humbled in every way you possibly can be humbled. And it's a fight. And it's a fight. And some days I lose that fight. Some days I lose that battle. Some days I let like the self-sabotage. And some days I go back to my baseline. I talk about this in the opening of Detached, how sometimes the instinct to just revert back to being miserable just takes over, not because it feels good, it doesn't, but it feels like home because that's all you've
Mm.
known. I have fought through debilitating low self-worth. I was extremely self-destructive for a very large chunk of time. There were points in my life where I could not trust myself to make decisions that were in my own best interest. I was absolutely my own worst enemy. And I just eventually had to wake up because I think I always thought something that a lot of us think, which is, oh, well, one day I'm just going to wake up a grown up and I'm just going to have everything figured out and I am just going to handle myself and I'm going to know how to handle my finances and my relationships, my friendships. And then I remember when I was 29, I was like, I'm not a grown up at all. Like I'm still doing the same stupid things I did when I was 22. Like when am I going to learn? And I was writing about the stuff too. I was helping people and I was a really good coach. I was great at helping people with their lives. So at the same time, I'm like, no, I'm a fraud because I can't embody this myself. And so that especially motivated me to get it together. And I had done a lot of stuff. I had done therapy, I had done IFS, I had done Reiki and
Mhm.
meditation and hypnosis. And this stuff would help a little, but I wasn't consistent. I wasn't implementing and I wasn't making it a daily practice in my life. So in some, yeah, it's something that I have to work on every day. I think this is something that connects me to my clients even though I'm not out there dating. I've been out of the dating pool for a long time. Everything that I teach in terms of relationships is just life skills. For the women I work with, they happen to be really struggling in their relationships. So that's where we're applying it. But I see so many parallels in my life and motherhood and career and being a business owner and all those things.
Mhm. I like that you mentioned the daily practice.
Yeah.
If somebody was to walk away from this episode and say, here are like a few things that I can start doing every single day to feel a little bit better about myself and
Mhm.
more at peace with who I truly am, like what are some of those things that we could maybe start incorporating?
Change the way you talk to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Most of us are so mean to ourselves and it's not our voice. I would also say stop making decisions from fear of loss because most of the time when you're making decisions out of fear, it's the wrong decision. So I think you need to ask yourself, if I weren't afraid of losing this person or this opportunity or this outcome, what would I do? Another thing that I think is pay attention to where you're overgiving, especially the women, whether it's your money or your time or your emotional labor. Chronic overgiving is a sign of seeking validation rather than coming from a place of self respect. So, really look at your life and look at where you're pouring yourself out completely. So, those are some of the main tips, I would
And those
say.
are things that you would just like do a mental note of every single day. Would you start the day or end the day with that?
Um,
Does that even matter?
I think either way. I don't think I do think that starting the day on a positive note is very valuable. Like being your own best friend, as cheesy as that sounds,
Mhm.
your own advocate. Like, I got this. I can do this. One thing I tell myself every day, because every day in my life comes with challenges. I have
Sure. We're
a lot
kids
of
for
challenges.
sure.
Every day I tell myself I can do hard things. Like whenever I get overwhelmed with like the kids and the work and the everything that needs to be done, I'm just like, I can do hard things. And I'm like, yeah, I can do hard things. Like I'm fine. That's how we need to be rather than, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. How am I going to do this? I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm being spread in 1,000 different directions. I can do hard things.
Ooh.
So I think that the way that we talk to ourselves is so, so important. The overgiving thing, maybe after this episode or whenever whoever's listening like gets a chance, spend some quiet moments thinking about in what areas am I just giving too much of myself to the point where it's depleting me. And then every day be intentional about pulling back a bit more and more in those areas.
Ooh, I like that you mentioned the depleting yourself for the overgiving because
Mhm.
my mind immediately was like, "Whoa, well, how do you know if you're overgiving? Like, is it truly you feel like you have nothing left for yourself? Is that kind of when you know that that's a problem for you?"
Well, I think that yes, when you do feel depleted, I also think that there is a feeling of being taken for granted, being taken
Yeah.
advantage of. And also, like if you feel like if I stop giving to this person, will they just disappear and leave from my life? That means you are just giving too much for the
Mm,
sake of maintaining a relationship that you don't even really know is reciprocal yet.
that makes sense. Okay, so it's just like just paying attention to some of those
Yeah.
basics and then just
Oh,
understanding how you feel.
and resentment. Resentment is a big one.
Tell me about that.
If you feel resentful towards your friends, towards your coworkers, like I'm the one that's doing everything, I'm taking it because you're offering, but like I'm taking
Right.
everything on. I feel resentment towards them. I feel resentment towards my husband, whatever it is. Like, okay, I think I'm pouring myself out too much and I'm not getting enough back. And that's why I'm starting to resent everyone.
Oh, that's such a big one too. That
Mhm.
resentment piece is so huge for so many people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like it's one of those things too where I don't think you realize that you're resentful until it's years and, or months of the consistent patterns of like you
Mhm.
overgiving. And then you wake
Yeah.
up one day and you're like, oh, maybe this was a problem this whole time.
Right, because it builds and it builds. And
Mhm.
a lot of women will just stuff it down, put on a smile. I'm supposed to be the people pleaser. I'm supposed to be the nurturer, the caretaker, whatever it is that you believe you need to be. And again, this all emerges in childhood. It's called behavioral adaptation. We all learn who we need to be in order to get love. So, do I need to
Mhm.
be the perfectionist? Do I need to be the achiever? Do I need to be the people pleaser? Whatever it is. And that's what we default to in our adulthood. And so it's important to pay attention to those things and really start to push back against it. And I guess like reprogram yourself, which is what I talk about in the feminine code. It's about those patterns and where they came from and how we can rewire in a way, not to like
Mhm.
talk about women like they're computers, but it's true so that we're not depleting ourselves in this way and that we're not pouring ourselves out because on top of all of that, being that way just makes you a prime for the picking from toxic guys, narcissists, manipulators. That's what makes you vulnerable when you are somebody who just wants to give.
So, from your book, The Feminine Code,
Mhm.
you've got a few books out there. Is
Mhm.
the Feminine Code, is that an okay one to start with, or would it be better to start with another one of your works first?
I guess it depends on where you're at in life. The feminine code is where to start if you are somebody who is constantly finding yourself in toxic relationships, if you are a people pleaser, if you are an overgiver, if you prioritize being chosen above anything else, that's where I would start. I have another book, like my first book, which I wrote so long ago, 10 Things Every Woman Needs to Know About Men. That's just if you're confused about men and you're like, I don't understand it. Like, why do they act the way they do?
Yeah,
My
totally.
book, You're Overthinking It, is more a compilation of essays. That's more about relationships and just understanding how to have a healthy relationship, what that looks like. Detached is letting go of relationships that don't serve you and building your self-worth. So I think you could start. It depends on like what's calling you, what you feel is most I feel like once you read a book description, you know if it's like, okay, I need this like right now.
It's so true. It like
Yeah.
immediately pulls you in. You're like, that's the one. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
really is. Okay, so for anybody that wants to get a copy of the Feminine Code, if they're hearing the descriptions, they're like, yeah, that one is actually the one for me.
Mhm.
Where is the best place? Is there like an ideal section to go to?
Sure. I mean, you can go on Amazon. You can just search for my name, Sabrina Bendory. You'll see all my books, or Sabrina Bendory, The Feminine Code on Amazon, or you can order it through Shop Catalog. That's my publisher. It will be available. I don't know if the audio is available yet as this episode's airing, but it will be available in audio as well, paperback, Kindle. You can also find links to all my stuff on my socials at Sabrina Bendory or my website, sabrinabendory.com.
I love it. Okay, I have really enjoyed this conversation. Is
Me
there
too.
anything that we didn't touch on that would be a good like last minute takeaway for listeners? I know we covered a lot, but I'm just curious if there's something that you're like, do this immediately and it will help you.
I think that the most powerful thing is to realize that you have so much more control over your life and your destiny and outcomes than you realize. Yeah, we have to take control over what's under our umbrella of control, but you want to know what makes the biggest difference? It's your internal state. It's nothing about the externals. And I see it all the time. Not to say externals don't matter. Like, yeah, they do. Like, you should take care of yourself and all those things. But it's your vibe, it's your inner state. It's that feeling of I am okay. That's why the name of my podcast is You Will Be Okay, because that's like what we're all seeking, this inner sense of I am okay. I am worthy. Things are going to work out. And when you have that more relaxed energy, when you can just relax your hands so you're not gripping the steering wheel, you can just kind of relax, so much goodness is attracted to you. And I know this in my own life as being somebody who was a repellent for good things for a very long time and then an attractor of good things, and seeing it through my clients, of which at this point I've worked with thousands of women. Now I work with men too. Like not thousands of them yet, but like we're getting there. There is something energetic that we can't even fully explain. And science has proven this over and over, that your internal state is just communicated out to the world and people pick up on it also subconsciously. They're not even consciously aware of what they're feeling. And that's under your control. Just follow the tips we talked about in this episode and get my books and you'll be
For
fine.
sure. Yeah. And listen to the podcast too, because I think
Yes,
that will help a lot of people too, for sure.
I hope so.
I did enjoy this conversation a lot. It was really helpful, and it's just so
Me
nice
too.
to see how we do have so much more control, like you mentioned, than we think
Yeah.
we do. And so I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing that. Before we officially part ways, are you down for some rapid fire questions?
Sure. I love rapid fire.
All right, let's do it. My first one for you, where's one location you're dying to travel to?
Italy. Just Italy in general. I mean, I've been
All of it.
all of it. No, I want to go to Italy. I really want to go with my husband. I've been there before, but like one thing I've been dying to do is go with him. Maybe when our kids are a little older, but specifically, I want to go back to Venice and Rome because those are just. I felt like when I was there the first time, like over 10 years ago, I felt like a shift in my body, like being there, and so I would love to bring him there.
How fun. I love
Mhm.
that. Okay. Aside from your own books, what is one book you find yourself gifting or recommending to others most often?
I really like Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima, or is it Jamie Lima Kern? That's a really good one. And Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist, she has a book called Do the Work, and I recommend that to everyone. She's brilliant.
Oh, I do love that book too. I forgot
Yeah.
about that one. That is a great one, actually.
Yeah.
Another question for you. What's one thing you recently purchased that has made your life better?
One thing that I've recently purchased that's made my life better. Um, I got this really cool like facial tool because like I noticed that I'm at
Oh,
the age
yeah.
where things are starting to drop. So I got this like red light, like you like go like this, and I feel like that's really helping. What else? This is a hard one. What else? I'm like, what do I even buy for myself? I feel like I can my kids. That's made my life better. That's been lovely.
For sure. Red light's like always a good thing to add
Yeah.
in. No doubt.
It like vibrates and it like lifts your face up.
Oh,
So
this is like a real cool thing. Okay.
yeah.
I have like one that's like a spot thing, and I do
Oh,
love
that
that.
those help
But
too.
they
Yeah.
do. I'm told they do, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for you, since this is a financial podcast, I'm always curious what your perspectives are. So, in your opinion, what is the secret to financial success?
What is the secret to financial success? What do you mean exactly by that? Like the secret to just like being successful or
Sure. I think whichever way you want to take it. It could be either like actually like you are killing it with money. It could be
Mhm.
just feeling great about your finances. I think whatever comes to mind for you.
Well, I think that like the mark of being financially successful is just, I don't think it's about like boats and yachts and mansions. I think that it's about just being able to do the things that you want to do in life without restriction, and being able to like go onto your bank account without feeling a sense of doom and dread and nausea anytime you do. And I've been there, and that's miserable. And I think that the key to success, I think that making money also is like very much mindset. And I say this because the work I do is not at all about making money, but a lot of the times as a byproduct, women will work on their worth, and then they get promotions or they get like a dream job. And what's like the number one financial book on the market right now? The Psychology of Money, because it's psychological. It's not like, oh, these are the investment strategies. So I think that it is the belief in yourself to have an impact. And I think that there's a lot of grit that's involved in that. And I also think that like if you find something that you love and you can make money doing it, like you'll never work a day in your life, which I think is really powerful. And I think that that is financial success. Like for me, that's what I consider being able to like do what I love and make money doing it. That was a long answer. Does that help?
That was beautiful. I love
I never
it.
get asked about finances. So
You're like, oh, okay.
I know, not something I ever
No,
think
I
about.
love it. That was a beautiful answer. I appreciate your time, Sabrina. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom, your tips and tricks, and helping us get a little bit more of the pathway to respect and magnetism. I appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, what'd you think? I loved this episode. The part that really stood out to me was just how important our self-talk and our self-worth is when it comes to relationships, and not necessarily just about finding the right person, but about having a happy, fulfilled relationship. And let's be real, the person you marry is such a huge commitment for yourself and even for your finances. So doing this type of work is really important. I loved it. I hope that you enjoyed it too. If you did, come hang out with me on Instagram. I'm at Whitney_Hansen_co. Let me know that you're listening in, and I will see you next week for another episode of the Money Nerds podcast. Bye.